In the quiet town of Willow Creek, where everyone knew their neighbors and the ice cream shop always had a line out the door, lived Officer Megan Riley. Megan wasn't a bad person, in fact, most folks liked her a lot. She always had a friendly wave and a kind word for everyone she met. Kids especially loved her because she'd often stop to chat about their day or show them the cool gadgets on her police car. But Megan had a secret. She wasn't always the most careful person. Sometimes she rushed, sometimes she got distracted, and sometimes, well, she made mistakes. Small mistakes, usually. Like forgetting to put sugar in her coffee or accidentally locking her keys in the car. Nothing too serious. Willow Creek wasn't exactly a hotbed of crime. Mostly, Megan helped lost dogs find their way home, mediated neighborly disputes about noisy lawnmowers, and made sure everyone followed the speed limit on Main Street. Still, she took her job seriously. She wanted to keep Willow Creek safe. She just wasn't perfect at it. And sometimes, that imperfection led to a sticky situation, one that would require more than just a friendly wave to fix. A situation that would involve a little boy with a big heart and an even bigger sense of right and wrong. This is the story of how one of Officer Megan's mistakes almost went unnoticed, if not for the honest eyes of a child. The fateful day started like any other in Willow Creek. The sun was shining, birds were chirping, and Officer Megan was running late. She'd overslept after staying up late watching a movie, and now she was rushing to get to her patrol car. As she backed out of her driveway, she nearly bumped into Mrs. Gable's prize-winning rose bushes. "Whoa, close call," she muttered to herself, a little flustered. She grabbed her usual large coffee from the drive-thru, balancing it precariously on the dashboard as she headed towards Main Street. Just as she reached for her radio to check in with dispatch, the inevitable happened. The car hit a bump, and coffee splashed everywhere, on her uniform, the steering wheel, and, most annoyingly, all over her face. "Oh, beans," she exclaimed, momentarily taking her eyes off the road to grab a napkin. It was just a split second, but that's all it took. A young man on a bicycle was crossing the street, and before Megan could fully react, her patrol car made a light thump against the back of his bicycle. The cyclist wobbled, but thankfully didn't fall. He managed to keep his balance, but his bicycle wasn't so lucky. It clattered to the ground, its front wheel bent at an awkward angle. Megan slammed on the brakes, her heart sinking faster than the coffee stain spreading across her uniform. This was not going to be a good day. The cyclist, a young man with a kind face and a backpack slung over his shoulder, looked a bit shaken but mostly unharmed. "Are you okay?" Megan asked, hopping out of the car, still wiping coffee from her chin. "Yeah, I think so," the cyclist replied, rubbing his arm. "Just a little startled. But my bike." He gestured sadly at the twisted front wheel. It was definitely not rideable. Luckily, it seemed like that was the extent of the damage. No broken bones, no serious injuries, just a bent bicycle and a whole lot of spilled coffee. But right then, a small boy named Timmy, who lived in the apartment building across the street, was walking home from school. He witnessed the whole thing. Timmy saw the coffee spill, he saw Officer Megan looking down, and he definitely saw the patrol car bump the bicycle. Timmy was a bright kid, known for his honesty and his amazing memory. He never forgot a face, a name, or a detail. He watched as Officer Megan helped the cyclist lift the damaged bike to the side of the road. He saw them talking, but he couldn't hear what they were saying. He felt a little knot of worry tighten in his stomach. Something about the situation didn't feel right to him. He couldn't put his finger on it, but he knew he'd remember everything he saw. Every single thing. "Look," Megan said to the cyclist, lowering her voice slightly. "I'm really sorry about this. I was a little distracted. But honestly, it was mostly your fault for not paying attention when you crossed the street." She knew it wasn't entirely true, but the words tumbled out before she could stop them. The cyclist looked surprised. "My fault? I looked both ways." Megan sighed. Look, I'm a police officer. I'm having a really bad day. If we file a report, it's going to be a whole big thing. Paperwork, investigations, it'll take forever. And frankly, she glanced at the coffee stain on her uniform, I don't have time for it. She paused, then pulled out a $20 bill from her pocket. Here, she said, handing it to the cyclist. This should cover at least part of the repair. Just, be more careful next time, okay? The cyclist hesitated, looking from the $20 bill to the damaged bike, then back to Officer Megan. He seemed unsure, but eventually, he took the money. Okay, he mumbled. Thanks, I guess. Megan breathed a sigh of relief. Great. Just, keep this between us, okay? She offered a strained smile and climbed back into her patrol car. As she drove away, she glanced in her rearview mirror and saw Timmy still standing across the street, watching her. A wave of guilt washed over her. She knew what she did wasn't right. But she hoped, with all her heart, that Timmy hadn't seen enough to cause trouble. Timmy was a special kid. He wasn't just good at remembering things, he also had a strong sense of what was right and wrong. His parents had taught him that honesty was always the best policy, even when it was hard. And seeing Officer Megan, someone he looked up to, seemingly try to sweep the accident under the rug, made his stomach churn. He walked home slowly, replaying the scene in his head. The spilled coffee, the officer's quick words, the cyclist's hesitant acceptance of the money. It all felt wrong. He imagined Officer Megan driving away, thinking she'd gotten away with something. And he thought about the cyclist, who probably needed more than $20 to fix his bike. When he got home, his mom was in the kitchen, baking cookies. The sweet smell usually cheered him up, but today, it didn't quite work. He dropped his backpack on the floor and sat down at the kitchen table, his brow furrowed. What's wrong, sweetie? His mom asked, noticing his troubled expression. You look like you've seen a ghost. Timmy hesitated. He didn't want to get Officer Megan in trouble. But he knew he couldn't keep what he saw to himself. It just wouldn't be right. Mom, he said, his voice barely a whisper. I saw something with Officer Megan. He took a deep breath and began to tell her everything. Every single detail he remembered, from the coffee stain to the bent bicycle wheel. And as he spoke, his mom listened patiently, her expression growing more and more serious. She knew her son. And she knew he wouldn't make something like this up. Timmy's mom, Sarah, listened carefully, her heart heavy. She knew Timmy wouldn't lie. He was the most honest kid she knew, sometimes to a fault. If he said he saw something, he saw it. And if he said it felt wrong, it probably was. She put down the cookie dough and took Timmy's hand. Honey, she said, this is serious. What Officer Megan did wasn't right. Even if no one got hurt badly, she still needs to be responsible for what happened. That evening, when Timmy's dad, David, came home from work, Sarah told him everything Timmy had said. David was just as concerned. He knew Officer Megan, too, and liked her. But he also believed in doing what was right. We have to report this, David said firmly. It's not fair to the cyclist, and it's not fair to let Officer Megan think she can just ignore the rules. Timmy felt a mix of relief and anxiety. He was glad his parents believed him and that they were going to do something about it. But he was also worried about what would happen next. Would Officer Megan be mad at him? Would people think he was a tattletale? Sarah hugged him tightly. You did the right thing, Timmy, she said. It takes courage to tell the truth, especially when it's about someone you know. We're proud of you. The next morning, Timmy's parents went to the Willow Creek Police Department. They asked to speak to someone in charge and told them everything Timmy had witnessed. The officer they spoke to, Sergeant Miller, listened intently, his expression growing more serious with each detail. He assured them that they would look into the matter. For Timmy, the waiting began. Back at the police station, Sergeant Miller frowned. He knew Officer Megan. She was a good officer, usually. But he also knew that everyone made mistakes. He decided to talk to her first before starting a full investigation. He found her in the break room, looking tired. "Megan," he said, "can I have a word?" Megan looked up, startled. "Sure, Sarge. What's up?" Sergeant Miller told her about Timmy's parents' visit and their account of the accident. He watched Megan's face carefully as he spoke. She seemed surprised, then a little nervous. "They said Timmy saw the whole thing?" she asked, her voice a bit shaky. "That's right," Sergeant Miller replied. "They said he saw you spill coffee and that you weren't paying attention when you hit the cyclist's bike." Megan hesitated. She knew she couldn't lie to Sergeant Miller. He was a fair man, but he also took his job seriously. "Well," she began, "there was an accident. But it wasn't as bad as they're making it sound." She proceeded to tell her version of the story, carefully omitting the part about the coffee spill and emphasizing that the cyclist hadn't been paying attention either. She hoped Sergeant Miller would believe her. She really didn't want to get into trouble. But deep down, she knew that Timmy's testimony, with his sharp memory and unwavering honesty, would be hard to ignore. The net of her half-truths was closing in. Sergeant Miller listened to Megan's story with a thoughtful expression. He knew Megan was leaving something out. He decided he needed to get a clearer picture of what really happened. "Okay, Megan," he said, "I appreciate you telling me your side of the story. But I also need to talk to Timmy myself. He's the only other witness, and his parents seem to believe him completely." Megan's heart sank. She knew this was coming. "Okay, Sarge," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I understand." Sergeant Miller arranged for Timmy and his parents to come to the police station the next day. He wanted to make Timmy feel comfortable, so he made sure the interview room was friendly and inviting. He even had a plate of cookies waiting for him. When Timmy arrived with his parents, he was nervous. He'd never been inside a police station before, and the whole thing felt very serious. Sergeant Miller greeted him with a warm smile and offered him a cookie. "Thank you, sir," Timmy said politely, taking a cookie. "Timmy," Sergeant Miller said, "I know this might be a little scary, but it's really important that you tell me exactly what you saw the other day. Can you do that for me?" Timmy nodded, his eyes wide. He took a deep breath and began to recount the events of that fateful day, starting with the spilled coffee and ending with Officer Megan driving away. He didn't leave out a single detail. And as he spoke, Sergeant Miller listened intently, his expression growing more and more grim. He was beginning to understand the full extent of Officer Megan's mistake. Timmy sat in a slightly too big chair, his feet dangling. Sergeant Miller's kind eyes made it easier, but he still felt a little like a bug under a microscope. He took another cookie, a chocolate chip, and began to speak, his voice small but clear. "I was walking home from school," he started, "and I saw Officer Megan's car. She was drinking coffee, and then she spilled it. It went everywhere. She was trying to clean it up, and that's when she bumped the bike." He paused, remembering the cyclist's surprised face. The man on the bike almost fell, but he didn't. But his bike got bent. Officer Megan gave him some money, and then she told him to be more careful. But it wasn't really his fault. Sergeant Miller leaned forward, his eyebrows raised. "Are you sure about that, Timmy? Are you sure Officer Megan was distracted by the coffee?" Timmy nodded firmly. "Yes, sir. I saw it. The coffee was all over her shirt, and she was wiping it with a napkin. She wasn't looking at the road." He added, "She told him it was his fault. That he should have been watching. But he did look. I saw him look." Sergeant Miller scribbled notes on a pad of paper. He asked Timmy more questions, carefully probing for any inconsistencies. But Timmy's story remained the same, clear and consistent. He remembered every detail, from the color of the cyclist's backpack to the type of cookie Sergeant Miller had offered him. When Timmy finished, Sergeant Miller thanked him for his honesty. He patted him on the shoulder and said, "You're a brave young man, Timmy. You did the right thing." As Timmy left the police station with his parents, he felt a sense of relief wash over him. He had told the truth, and that was all that mattered. Now, it was up to Sergeant Miller to decide what to do next. Sergeant Miller now had two conflicting stories. Officer Megan claimed the cyclist was at fault, while Timmy insisted that Officer Megan was distracted and responsible. He knew he had to confront Megan again, this time with Timmy's testimony in hand. He found her at her desk, looking even more worried than before. "Megan," he said, his voice stern, "I need you to be completely honest with me. I spoke to Timmy, and his version of events is very different from yours." He laid out Timmy's statement on her desk, highlighting the key details: the spilled coffee, the wiping of the uniform, the officer's distraction, the blaming of the cyclist. Megan's face paled as she read it. He remembers all that," she stammered. "He does," Sergeant Miller replied. "He remembers everything. And frankly, Megan, I believe him. He's a good kid, and he has no reason to lie." He paused, giving her a chance to speak. "Now, I'm giving you one last chance to tell me the truth. What really happened out there, Megan?" Megan looked at the statement, then at Sergeant Miller, then down at her hands. She knew she was cornered. Timmy's testimony had exposed her lie. She couldn't deny it any longer. The weight of her mistake, and the guilt of trying to cover it up, finally became too much to bear. A tear rolled down her cheek. "Okay, Sarge," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Okay, I'll tell you the truth." The game was up. The truth poured out of Megan like the spilled coffee had earlier that day. She confessed that she was running late, that she had spilled coffee on herself, and that she had been distracted when she bumped into the cyclist. She admitted that she had tried to downplay the accident to avoid paperwork and scrutiny. "I know it was wrong, Sarge," she said, her voice trembling. I panicked. I didn't want to get into trouble." Sergeant Miller listened patiently, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he sighed. "Megan," he said, "I'm disappointed. I know you're a good officer, but what you did was unacceptable. You put someone's safety at risk, and then you tried to cover it up." He paused, then continued. "Because you came clean, and because no one was seriously hurt, I'm not going to recommend severe disciplinary action. But there will be consequences. You'll be suspended without pay for 2 weeks, and you'll have to undergo retraining on accident reporting procedures." Megan nodded, accepting her punishment. She knew she deserved it. "Thank you, Sarge," she said. "I understand." Sergeant Miller stood up. "I also want you to apologize to Timmy and his parents. And to the cyclist whose bike you damaged. You need to make things right, Megan." Megan nodded again. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she was determined to do whatever it took to earn back the trust she had lost. The first step was admitting her mistake, and thanks to Timmy's unwavering honesty, she had finally done just that. Now, the real work began. Megan went to Timmy's house that afternoon, her heart pounding with a mixture of shame and gratitude. She rang the doorbell, and Sarah answered, her expression cautious. "Mrs. Johnson," Megan said, "I'm Officer Megan. I wanted to apologize to Timmy and to you and your husband." Sarah hesitated for a moment, then stepped aside. "Come in, Officer Riley." Timmy was in the living room, playing with his toy cars. He looked up when Megan entered, his expression unreadable. Megan knelt down, so she was at eye level with him. "Timmy," she said, her voice sincere, "I wanted to say I'm sorry. I made a mistake, and I didn't tell the truth about what happened. You were right, and I was wrong." She continued, "You were very brave to tell the truth, even though it was hard. You helped me learn a valuable lesson. Thank you." Timmy looked at her for a long moment, then a small smile appeared on his face. "It's okay, Officer Megan," he said. "Everyone makes mistakes." Megan's heart swelled with relief. She turned to Sarah and David, who had been watching the exchange. "I'm truly sorry for causing you any trouble," she said. "I promise to do better in the future." David nodded. "We appreciate you apologizing, Officer Riley. It takes courage to admit when you're wrong." As Megan left Timmy's house, she felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She still had a lot of work to do to regain the community's trust, but she was finally on the right path. And it was all thanks to a little boy with a big heart and an unwavering commitment to the truth. He had shown her that even the smallest voice can make a big difference. And that honesty, in the end, is always the best policy. News of Timmy's bravery spread quickly through Willow Creek. People admired his honesty and his willingness to stand up for what was right, even when it was difficult. The local newspaper ran a story about him, calling him Willow Creek's little hero. The cyclist, whose name was Mr. Peterson, was also grateful to Timmy. Officer Megan had paid for the repair of his bike, and he was back on the road, enjoying his daily rides. He stopped by Timmy's house to thank him personally. "You're a good kid, Timmy," Mr. Peterson said, shaking his hand. "You did the right thing. Thanks to you, Officer Megan learned a valuable lesson, and I got my bike fixed." At school, Timmy's classmates looked up to him. They admired his courage and his unwavering commitment to the truth. He became a role model for them, showing them that even kids can make a difference in the world. As for Officer Megan, she served her suspension and completed her retraining. She returned to her job with a renewed sense of responsibility and a commitment to always telling the truth, no matter how difficult it might be. She even started carrying a travel mug with a lid, to prevent future coffee spills. She made a point of stopping to chat with Timmy whenever she saw him, always thanking him for helping her become a better police officer. Willow Creek was a small town, but it had learned a big lesson about the importance of honesty and the power of a child's voice. And it was all thanks to Timmy, the little hero who dared to tell the truth. The town of Willow Creek held a small ceremony to honor Timmy for his bravery and honesty. The mayor presented him with a certificate and a shiny new bicycle helmet. Timmy beamed with pride as he accepted the award. "Timmy," the mayor said, "you've shown us all the importance of telling the truth, even when it's hard. You're a true hero." Timmy's parents watched from the audience, their hearts filled with pride. They knew they had raised a special son, one who would always stand up for what was right. After the ceremony, Timmy rode his new bicycle around the town square, his friends cheering him on. He felt like he was on top of the world. He had made a difference, and he knew that he would continue to do so in the future. Even Officer Megan attended the ceremony, standing at the back of the crowd. She watched Timmy with admiration, knowing that he had helped her become a better person and a better police officer. She made a silent vow to always remember the lesson she had learned from him and to always uphold the truth, no matter what. And so, in the quiet town of Willow Creek, a little boy's honesty had changed everything. It had taught a valuable lesson about the importance of integrity, the power of a child's voice, and the courage to stand up for what is right. And it all started with a spilled cup of coffee and a bent bicycle wheel. A simple story that reminds us that even the smallest actions can have the biggest impact. The power of truth prevailed. Years later, Timmy was no longer a little boy riding his bike around Willow Creek. He was a young man, graduating from high school with honors. As he stood on the stage, receiving his diploma, he thought back to that day, so long ago, when he had witnessed the accident. He realized that the events of that day had shaped him in many ways. He had learned the importance of honesty, integrity, and courage. He had also learned that even small actions can have a big impact. As he looked out at the audience, he saw his parents, beaming with pride. He also saw Officer Megan, now a seasoned veteran of the Willow Creek Police Department, standing tall and proud in her uniform. She caught his eye and gave him a warm smile. Timmy smiled back, knowing that they shared a special connection. They had both learned a valuable lesson that day, and it had changed their lives for the better. And as he stepped off the stage, ready to embark on the next chapter of his life, Timmy knew that he would always remember the lessons he had learned in Willow Creek. He would always strive to be honest, courageous, and true to himself. And he would always remember the power of a child's voice to make a difference in the world. For it was that voice that brought the truth to light. The power of truth is a beacon. And that, my friends, is the story of Officer Megan, Timmy, and the spilled coffee. It's a story about mistakes, honesty, and the courage to do what's right, even when it's hard. It reminds us that no one is perfect, and we all make mistakes. But it's how we handle those mistakes that truly defines us. Officer Megan made a mistake, but she learned from it and became a better person because of it. Timmy showed us that even the smallest voice can make a big difference. His honesty and courage inspired an entire town and taught everyone the importance of standing up for what's right. So, the next time you see something that doesn't seem right, remember Timmy. Remember that your voice matters, no matter how small you may feel. And always, always, choose honesty. Because as Timmy showed us, the truth has a way of shining through, even in the darkest of situations. And sometimes, all it takes is one little boy with a big heart to expose everything. The world needs more tea,